I'm an ordinary person with a normal job. At the time, I was 31 years old and working construction in Wisconsin. What happened to me didn't feel scary at first. That's the part that still bothers me. It started as a simple decision. I needed time alone. Nothing dramatic. I had been working long hours, sleeping poorly, and arguing with people over things that didn't matter. I didn't want a vacation. I just wanted quiet. Somewhere with no traffic, no phone calls, and no expectations. So I rented a small cabin in the woods for 3 nights. The listing was normal. Photos showed a clean place, surrounded by trees, with a dirt road leading up to it. The reviews were boring in a good way. Words like peaceful, quiet, perfect for getting away. The owner lived 2 towns over and left a key in a lockbox. Nothing about it raised concern. I arrived in the early afternoon. The sun was still up. Birds were out. Everything looked exactly like the photos. I unlocked the door, walked inside, and did a quick check of the rooms. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen, a living room with a couch and a wood stove. Nothing was out of place. I put my bag down and stood there for a moment, enjoying how quiet it was. No hum of traffic.
No voices.
Just wind in the trees. It felt like the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. That feeling didn't last long. As I was unpacking, I noticed something small. The back door was unlocked. That didn't seem strange at first. Maybe the cleaner forgot. I locked it and didn't think about it again. A few minutes later, I found muddy footprints near the sink. They weren't fresh.
The mud was dry.
I assumed they were mine, even though I hadn't stepped in mud. I wiped them up and moved on.
It was still a normal day.
Still a normal place. Then I noticed the smell. It was faint, like sweat mixed with old wood. I checked the trash. Empty. Checked the fridge.
Clean.
I told myself it was just the cabin itself. Old places have smells. Around sunset, I stepped outside to bring my cooler in. That's when I saw the tracks in the dirt near the side of the cabin.
Bootprints.
Large ones, leading toward the trees. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at them. They didn't look fresh, but they didn't look old either. I remember thinking something simple. Someone was here recently. At the time, that thought didn't scare me. I wish it had. The cabin sat at the end of a narrow dirt road, about 20 minutes from the nearest town. The road wasn't marked. You had to follow the directions carefully, or you'd miss the turn. Tall pine trees closed in on both sides, blocking most of the daylight even in the afternoon. It was late October. The air was cold enough that you could see your breath in the mornings, but not cold enough for snow. During the day, the woods were quiet.
No hikers.
No nearby houses. At night, the darkness felt heavier, like the trees swallowed whatever light there was. I was there alone. No friends. No family. That was intentional. My job had me around people constantly, and I needed a few days where no one needed anything from me. I told my boss I was taking personal time. I told my family I was going up north, but I didn't give them the exact address. I didn't think it mattered. The cabin itself was basic but well kept. The furniture looked older but clean. A small dining table, 2 chairs, a couch that faced a stone fireplace. The walls were wood-paneled, and the floors creaked when you walked across them. There was no Wi-Fi and no television service. Just a small radio and whatever signal your phone could pick up, which wasn't much. The owner had left a handwritten note on the counter. It welcomed me, listed a few house rules, and reminded me to lock the doors at night because of wildlife. Bears and coyotes mostly. I read it once and set it aside. That first evening, I cooked a simple meal and ate alone at the table. Outside, the wind picked up as the sun went down. Tree branches scraped against the cabin now and then. It sounded like someone brushing their hand along the walls. I tried to ignore it. After dinner, I built a small fire and sat on the couch with a book. My phone showed 1 bar of service, just enough to send a text if I stood near the window. I messaged my sister to let her know I'd arrived safely. She replied with a thumbs up. That was the last message I sent from there. There were no other people involved. No neighbors dropping by. No staff checking in.
Just me and the cabin.
By the time I got ready for bed, The woods outside were completely dark. No porch light. No distant glow from houses. When I turned off the lights inside, the windows became black mirrors. It felt isolated, but not threatening. At least, that's what I believed going into that first night. The first strange thing happened the next morning. I woke up just after sunrise. The cabin was quiet, the kind of quiet you only get far from towns. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the fog lift off the trees. Everything looked normal. When I stepped outside, I noticed the front porch chair had been moved. I clearly remembered leaving it against the wall the night before. Now it was facing the door, like someone had been sitting there. I told myself the wind must have pushed it. Even as I thought it, I knew it didn't make sense. The chair was heavy. I walked around the cabin to check the back. That's when I saw footprints again. Boot prints in the dirt near the bedroom window. They circled the side of the cabin and disappeared into the trees. I followed them with my eyes, but I didn't step closer. The rest of the morning passed without incident. I tried to focus on normal things. I cleaned up, read, and chopped a bit of wood. Still, the feeling stayed with me, like I was being watched from somewhere I couldn't see. By early afternoon, the sky turned gray. The temperature dropped. A light rain started to fall, tapping against the roof. I stayed inside and listened to the sound of it. That's when I heard another noise underneath it. Footsteps. They were faint at first, almost lost in the rain. Slow and uneven. I waited, holding my breath. The steps moved from the front of the cabin toward the side. Then they stopped. I stood there for a long time listening. Nothing else happened. That evening, I locked every door and window. I checked them twice. The owner's note about wildlife replayed in my head, but this didn't feel like an animal.
Animals don't walk like that.
Animals don't circle a building. After dark, the radio picked up nothing but static. The fire popped loudly now and then, making me jump. Around 9 p.m., the lights flickered once, then stayed on. There was no storm, just clouds. Later, as I was brushing my teeth, I noticed the bathroom mirror was fogged again. I hadn't used hot water yet. I wiped it clean with my hand and stared at my reflection longer than usual. I went to bed early. Not because I was tired, but because I wanted the day to be over. Lying there in the dark, I heard something move outside the bedroom wall. A slow drag through the leaves. Then a pause. Then a soft knock. Just once. I didn't answer. I didn't sleep much after that knock. Every small sound pulled me out of whatever light sleep I managed to get. The wind. A branch snapping. The cabin settling. Each noise felt closer than it should have. When the sky finally started to lighten, I got up without feeling rested at all. The first thing I did was check the doors. The front door was still locked. The back door was not. I stood there staring at it, trying to convince myself I must have forgotten. But I remembered clearly. I had checked it twice the night before. I locked it. I tested the handle. The door was open just a few inches. I closed it slowly and locked it again. My hands were shaking now. I looked around the kitchen. Nothing was missing. Nothing looked disturbed. But the air felt different, like the space had already been used by someone else. I decided to leave later that day. I told myself I'd pack after breakfast and head back to town. That decision should have made me feel better. It didn't. While eating, I noticed something else. My cooler had been opened. The lid wasn't fully shut. Inside, one of the food containers was gone. I stood there holding the cooler handle, feeling a tight pressure in my chest. Someone had been inside the cabin. There was no denying it anymore. I grabbed my phone and tried calling the owner. No signal. I walked outside and moved toward the road, holding the phone up, hoping for a bar. Nothing. The trees swallowed the sound of my footsteps. The woods felt too still. That's when I heard movement behind me. Not loud. Not rushed. Just the sound of someone walking through leaves, keeping distance. Matching my pace. I turned around fast. Nothing. Just trees. I backed toward the cabin without turning my back again. Once inside, I locked the door and pulled the curtains shut. The light inside made the windows feel like weak points. Like anyone outside could see straight through. A few minutes later, something hit the side of the cabin. Not hard. More like a test. Then another sound. A scrape, slow and deliberate, running along the wall toward the bedroom. I moved quietly into the bedroom and grabbed the only thing I could use as a weapon. A heavy flashlight. I stood there, listening, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. The footsteps stopped right outside the bedroom wall. Then I heard breathing again. Closer this time. And then, very clearly, the sound of fingers brushing against the glass of the bedroom window. I knew then I wasn't dealing with someone passing through. Whoever was out there wasn't leaving. He was waiting. The breathing outside the window didn't stop. It stayed steady, slow, like the person knew I could hear it. I stood frozen, gripping the flashlight so hard my hand hurt. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. Then the window rattled. Not violently, just enough to test it. I stepped back, my foot bumping the bed frame. The noise was small, but it was enough. The breathing paused. Then I heard footsteps moving toward the front of the cabin. A second later, the front door handle turned.
Once. Twice.
The lock held, but the door shook as weight leaned against it. I heard a low voice on the other side. Not yelling. Not whispering.
Just talking like he was trying to keep calm.
I know you're in there. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. I backed into the bathroom and locked the door. There was no other exit. Just a small window, too narrow to fit through.
The front door slammed. Harder this time.
Then again. Wood cracked. The sound echoed through the cabin. I called 911, praying for signal. The call didn't go through. The banging stopped. For a moment there was nothing. No movement. No sound. Then the bathroom door handle moved.
Slowly.
It shook once. Then again, harder. The door frame groaned. I pressed my shoulder against the door, bracing it with everything I had. The handle stopped. I thought maybe he had given up. That's when I heard the sound of breaking glass. The bedroom window. I ran. I unlocked the bathroom door and sprinted through the living room just as footsteps hit the floor behind me. I didn't look back. I threw myself at the back door, unlocked it, and burst outside into the cold air. I ran barefoot through the woods. Branches cut my arms and legs. I fell once, got up, and kept going. Behind me, I heard him crash through the brush. He wasn't running fast. He didn't need to.
He knew the area.
I saw my car through the trees and screamed as I reached it. My hand slipped on the door handle, slick with sweat. I got it open, jumped inside, and locked the doors. He came out of the trees just as the engine started. He stopped a few feet from the car. I saw his face clearly for the first time. He was smiling. I drove without looking back. I drove until I hit the main road and didn't stop until I reached the nearest town. I parked in front of a gas station with the lights on and stayed inside the car, shaking until the police arrived. 2 officers followed me back to the cabin just after sunrise. Seeing the place again in daylight felt unreal. From the outside, it looked harmless, quiet,
Empty.
like nothing had ever happened there. One officer stayed with me while the other cleared the cabin with his weapon drawn. He called out after a few minutes and told me it was safe to come inside. The front door was damaged. The bedroom window was broken inward. Glass covered the floor. But what caught my attention wasn't the damage. It was the smell. Stronger now, like sweat and damp clothes. The officer lifted a rug near the kitchen. Under it was a trapdoor. I hadn't noticed it before. It blended into the floor perfectly. The officer opened it, and a wave of cold, stale air came up. There was a crawl space underneath the cabin. Not deep, but wide enough for someone to move around. Inside, they found a sleeping bag, empty food containers, cigarette butts,
And a notebook.
The notebook was filled with dates, names, short notes. My name was written near the end. Next to it was the word, arrived. The officer told me the man had likely been living there for months, maybe longer, watching renters come and go, learning their habits, waiting until they were alone. Then he showed me something that made my stomach drop. On the last page of the notebook was a simple drawing of the cabin. Every room was labeled.
Bedroom.
bathroom,
kitchen.
and next to the bedroom, written in careful letters, were the words, "Best time, after midnight." The police searched the surrounding woods for hours.
Dogs were brought in.
They found fresh footprints leading away from the cabin toward the lake. Then nothing. Like he knew exactly how to disappear. Before leaving, one of the officers told me something quietly. The cabin had been rented 3 times earlier that year. One renter left early, without explanation. Another reported missing food. The third never filed a complaint at all. They never found out why. The case was marked as ongoing.
No suspect. No arrest.
When I asked if they thought he would come back, the officer didn't answer right away. He just looked at the trees and said, "People like that don't stop. They just move." I still think about that notebook. About how long my name was written there before I ever arrived. And how close I came to becoming more than just another date on a page. Months have passed since that night at the cabin, but I still can't shake the feeling that he knows more than I realize. I moved apartments, changed my routines, even started driving different routes to work. Sometimes I hear a sound in the distance that makes me freeze, like footsteps on gravel or leaves crunching under someone's boots. I know it's probably nothing, but I can't convince myself of that. The police never caught him. They searched the woods, the nearby cabins, the towns. Nothing.
No clues. No sightings.
Just the footprints leading into nowhere. I still have the notebook's memory burned into my mind. The careful handwriting, the dates, my name. I keep thinking about how long he had been watching. How long he had planned. How close I was to walking into the trap he had set for months. Sometimes, late at night, I imagine the crawl space beneath the cabin, the way he could have emerged without anyone noticing. And I realize he could still be out there. Watching. Waiting. Not just at that cabin, but anywhere someone chooses to be alone. I can't explain why it bothers me most when I'm alone. The feeling that someone could be close enough to know what I'm doing without ever being seen. The thought that he might already know where I live now. I still drive past that area when I can, glancing at the woods, and I catch myself imagining a shadow between the trees. Not moving, but waiting. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I hear breathing outside my window. Every time, I tell myself it's just the wind. But my stomach tightens. My heart races. I check the doors. Every lock holds. But I still feel it, like someone is watching, like he's never far away. The police closed my case eventually, but the truth is simple. He was never caught. And maybe he never will be. I still don't know who he was, or how long he had been following me. And sometimes, when I'm completely alone, I swear I can hear the soft crunch of boots on leaves outside, even when there's nothing there. The worst part? I have the feeling that one day I might find out.